Greetings to those who watch below. Before we start today's video, I'd like to give a huge shout out and say a massive thank you to those who dwell below. An exclusive channel membership that gets you shout outs at the start of every video. So those who dwell below are Lefty Kim, Lisa Watts, Jess Black Curtain, Wicked Witch and Steffi Ray. Thank you. Now, going to work can be a terrifying prospect for many of us. However, those on the night shift have the dark to deal with, and sometimes the paranormal. So sit back, relax and enjoy these true terrifying night shift paranormal encounters. Night Security by Marine 1. Almost a year ago, I took a job as night security for one of the buildings that houses several offices. Pay is not really much, but the proximity of the location from my house is what I really like. I usually just leave my car at home and take a 2-mile walk to and from work. I always prided myself in being fit, so this was a great excuse for taking a brisk night walk. My shift doesn't start until 11, but I'm often in the office an hour early. I clock in at 10, make my first cup of coffee for the night, and then chat a bit with the other security personnel. My schedule is pretty predictable, and one can tell what time it is just by knowing where I'd be. The building I am assigned to is about 5 floors high, with a basement parking. Several offices are housed in the building, with one of them also operating a night shift. There are no more than 15 people in this particular office, and they spend most of their time inside. I have very little to no interaction with these people, except on a few occasions where my help was needed. I start my round promptly at 11, with a flashlight and my radio on hand. I'd make my way down to the basement parking and move 1 floor at a time, terminating on the building's roof deck. I usually stay there the longest, as I like the cool breeze and the quietness of the place. More often than not, the roof deck is pitch black and only illuminated by the surrounding buildings. I've heard several stories from the other security personnel about some strange goings-on in this building. I didn't really pay much attention to these, as they seemed to be rather exaggerated. One case in point is the story of a boy who apparently has a knack for suddenly showing himself half-bodied to the night security and employees. Seeing a half-bodied boy will surely freak anyone out, but in my 10 months here, I have yet to encounter him. There are stories as well of whispering and disembodied voices. Again, I have yet to hear these. Things changed, however, recently. No, I have not encountered the half-bodied boy, nor have I heard disembodied voices. Yet the experience I had left me wondering what the heck I was seeing. To be honest, I'm still not too sure. The first incident took place towards the end of February this year. It was a Sunday. There are 3 of us on night shift, with one taking the weekends off. This time, however, the other security called in sick, leaving me the only security personnel. There's not much to do on weekends anyway, as the only office that has night operation is also closed. I did my usual round, ending up on the 4th floor a little after 1. As I walked from one end of the building to the other, I saw someone enter one of the small offices. I didn't receive a memo from the building admin indicating someone was coming in that night. Was a break-in happening on my watch? I couldn't let that happen. I went back to the security office, took our service pistol, and cautiously approached the said office. I checked the door. It was secure. No sign of forced entry. I shone the light inside. Nothing was amiss, and definitely no one was inside. Baffled, I went back to the security room and ran the closed-circuit cameras. There was indeed someone, but the strange thing was, the figure just passed through the solid glass door. Even with the grainy quality of the footage as I zoomed in, it was clear that someone passed through the door. That someone was a solid dark mass, with no discernible features, other than what seemed like a small head on a rather large torso. I was reluctant to file an incident report given the circumstances. I left it at that. I didn't even mention this to the other personnel. A few weeks passed without any further incident, until about 2 weeks ago. As I was doing my usual rounds, I got a radio call from the other security. He told me that someone was at the door of one of the offices, the same office where I first had my strange encounter. He asked me if I could go and check it out. As I got there, I radioed back and told the other security member that there was no one there. He insisted that there was, and that he could clearly see the other on the monitor. I was so annoyed at the thought of this dude pulling my leg, so I went back to the security room to get him to level with me. When I got there, he showed me the recording. There really was someone in front of the office door, and was just inches away from me. The same solid mass with a very small head and large torso. The funny thing is that in the footage, I seemed to be talking to whatever was there. The other security does not see any anomaly in the apparition, and to this day, he still thinks it was a real person I was talking to, and that I was the one pulling his leg. So, what the heck did I see? The White Lady of Burger King by Seaman710. I've worked for Burger King a year now, and both locations that I've been at were haunted. While there's not much story to the first store I was at, what I experienced on the night shift, along with others at my current store, is something straight from a horror movie. It started simple enough. One night while I was manning the front counter, I noticed a young woman in her 20s waving to get my attention. She had what I'd best describe as a formal white gown on from the flapper days, and long blonde hair. I explained I'd be right with her, and turned away less than a second. In the time I'd taken to turn back around, she was gone. I assumed that I was just exhausted, and wrote it off until a month later. My co-workers and I were discussing ghosts, and while asking if a friend believed in them, she mentioned she'd seen one at work. When I asked the story, I'll give you one guess as to the spectre she described. That's right, the same lady, the same wave, even standing in the same place. It really creeped us out, but we didn't think much of it. But apparently, the woman knew we'd seen her, because that's when the haunting began in earnest. It started as little things. To this day, I see her in the lobby doing various things, whether it be waving me down again, sitting in a booth staring out the window, or dancing as if she's at the most elegant one-person ball I had seen. Other people claim to see her too, including one employee who I've never seen so spooked in my life. Overall, she seemed to keep to herself, so we let her be. About a month after her frequent appearances, however, things started to become less Casper and more poltergeist. One night, I had clocked out and went home. One of my employees was waiting for a ride, and swore to me that as she was walking around, something followed her, loud, heavy footsteps, that she said made her blood run cold. I found this a little eerie, but thought nothing of it, even after she quit, no longer wishing to work the night shift. Then came my disturbing experience. At about 11:55, with only 5 minutes until closing, I was taking orders. I told the current car that I didn't have a specific item they wanted. What I was greeted by was the most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard in my life, like the sound of a woman in a horror movie just moments before being taken out by some man in a mask. I threw off my headset, thinking it was just someone in the car, and as the car, who didn't want the food, drove off, I noticed distinctly that there was only one passenger in the car, a man. Understandably, I was visibly shaken, and thank God that I didn't get another car before I was able to take it off for the night. After that, her appearances became more frequent. My general manager was sceptical, but becoming less so with every team member that seemed to come forward having heard a strange sound, or seemingly seen someone who just wasn't there. Fast forward to last night. We had already closed the dining room for the night, and I was cleaning, when clear as day, I heard her for the first time. "Excuse me, sir," came a woman's loud voice. I turned around, but though there were two women there, both of them were on their phones and finishing their meals. Neither had any idea what I was talking about. Then tonight came what I call the escalation. I came into work to my general manager telling me, "Okay, I think I believe you about your ghost." I asked what happened, and according to her, both managers this morning, while the store was completely empty, swore up and down that they heard someone shouting the assistant manager's name. After a thorough search, they found absolutely no one in the store, which apparently spooked her out. She had previously written it off, having worked the night shift and not seen a thing. Then tonight, as we were doing our usual work, my co-worker turned to me and asked if I could hear someone crying. At first I was too busy to notice, but before long I heard a gross sobbing. Again, a woman's. I stood there dumbstruck, and asked another co-worker who heard the same thing. Our only female co-worker there was standing right beside me, straight-faced and handing out food in the drive-thru. It continued for a good 5 minutes. Supposedly, our Burger King is built near what was once a cemetery, if my older co-worker is to be believed. But honestly, none of us know where to begin to figure out who the White Lady is, and most are too afraid of finding out to call up a paranormal team. I only hope she is as friendly as she first appeared, and her creepier interactions are indeed harmless. Shadow People at Work and Pretty Lady by Michelle Loves Ghosts. I started my job 3 years ago, and I eventually got tired of working days and moved to nights where it's less busy and more relaxed. That's when I started noticing more things, like dark shadows passing by other desks out the corner of my eye. I would just blow it off. I started to hear tapping noises too from the huge windows behind my desk. Since there were other people around, I just passed it off as someone else doing it. When I went to the graveyard shift, that's when I really started to pick up on things I couldn't explain. They eventually moved our team to the other side of the call centre, and this is where it seemed more active. In front of my desk, about 50 foot away, was a TV hanging from the ceiling. We always checked it to see if calls were holding and for how long, letting us know to answer the phones quickly. When I worked on my computer, I would constantly see out the corner of my eye a dark shadow passing back and forth in front of that TV. It drove me crazy. I even started pushing my files and papers higher up in my cubicle to block it out. One night, I actually caught a glimpse of it. I was shocked. It was the top half, side view of a shadow person. The head was slightly bent backward, and the mouth open, as if in a dazed state. Maybe that's how shadow people are, wandering around in a half-unconscious state, just roaming in their dimension, lost. I think it may have been drawn to that TV, since it was a bright white background, and it was attracted to the light or used its energy. It moved very quickly, and when I noticed it wasn't there anymore, I knew it was wandering around the call centre at night. I would hear bangs, noises, alarms going off at random times, and would feel a sensation of something passing by my desk. I especially hated going to the bathroom late night by myself, and would make it fast. A few times I heard the toilet flushing over and over from behind the wall, which was the men's room. When I went back to my desk, I asked the only other person there if he went to the bathroom. Nope. Another co-worker told me, when he was in the bathroom all alone, the automated paper towel dispenser went off by itself, and rolls of tissues started spitting out. It has a sensor underneath that goes off giving you paper towels, but he wasn't near it. He was on the other side of the sink. He said he got creeped out and immediately went back to his desk. It was me and another guy that did the graveyard together, and eventually one night we shared our experiences. One night I was relaxed at 2 a.m, just watching a movie at my desk, when something got my attention. I looked down the long aisle that leads to the restrooms. It was always darker over there, especially when we turned off the annoying office lights at night, but I saw the top half, head and shoulders, of a shadow person darting quickly down the aisle, in between the supervisor's cubicles, as if it was roaming around. It moved so fast, but I caught a glimpse. Sometimes I would see a shadow of the top part of the head passing by other cubicles at random too. The term restless spirit made perfect sense to me. I always pretended not to notice, since spirits sense your fear and use your energy. I think she knew I liked being scared and all things paranormal, so she started to like me and play around more. Sometimes I would catch the shadow peeping at me from around the corner, as if to say, "Hee hee, I see you. Do you see me?" I remember one night when my co-worker and I were chit-chatting, I suddenly felt a tugging on the back of my shirt. I ignored it, thinking it was my shirt caught on my belt. Moments later, it happened again. I stopped and knew she was tugging on my shirt. I know it's a female spirit, due to my other encounter. I remember the first night I switched to the graveyard shift. I was so happy. Less calls, no supervisors around to watch you every minute, no traffic before or after work, great parking, and the silence. I parked up in front and came upstairs through the back of the building, and as I reached the top, I happened to look to my right, and I see a very pretty lady sitting at another employee's desk, just typing away at the keyboard. I thought, that's strange. Mary would never let anyone use her desk or computer. Mary was a workaholic on the administration side that was always bugging people to do more work and never left her desk. I tried to avoid that side of the building, since it consisted of supervisors, corporate folk, and the president and vice presidents. Anyway, I didn't see the lady's face, but I felt she was very beautiful, very sophisticated, and I was compelled to look at her. I saw her from behind, with her leg crossed as she was typing away. She wore a bright red blazer jacket with pointy shoulders, kind of the 80s style, a black slimming mid-thigh skirt, sexy shiny black heels, black stockings, and her hair was straight shoulder-length jet black. What struck me the most was how bright the colours were. They just seemed so rich. After that moment, I turned left to walk towards my section of the call centre to my desk. I sat down and logged into the phones and started to think, who was that lady? She's so pretty. I bet she's not from around here. She dresses so professional, like she's from a big city or corporate place. Just to say, Tucson is very laid back. Even businesses here are casual in dress, mainly because it's so damn hot. I had to go to the break room, which is in between the two departments, and for some reason I looked back over to see if I could find her again. It had only been maybe 5 minutes since I'd walked back, but she was gone. My first thought was how strange it was that she was there so late. Usually all the bigwigs leave as soon as it hits 5, or even sooner. I walked round to see if she had left, or to see her outside, but nothing. I was curious since we have a strict security door that is locked, and you can't get in without a badge or calling the main desk. There were only 2 ways out, past our section toward the stairs, or round the back past the reception desk, which has a noisy door and cameras. I just shrugged it off and thought, how strange. She just left without a trace. For some reason I was compelled into finding her. As I was working throughout the night, I wanted to retrace my steps and return to the top of the stairs where I had originally saw her. But as I stood there, I noticed the desk where I saw her originally couldn't have been possible, because now there was a huge fake plant in the way. I swear she was sitting right there, clear as day. I was confused, so I started walking towards that desk, and again noticed there couldn't have been a way for me to see her, because the desk in front of Mary's desk was covered with boxes, old office equipment, paper and old files all piled on top. But I know she was sitting right there. Crazy. There were no obstacles in my way or anything around when I first saw her. I kept thinking, she was sitting right there. I know it. How is this possible? We were busy with calls most of the night, but later on I finally asked the other 2 night people, who's that lady in the bright red blazer and black miniskirt sitting at Mary's desk? Is she allowed in the building? It's kinda late and I thought we were the only ones allowed in here. My co-worker who sat in front of me turned around and said, "Oh, you said she had on a red blazer with black hair? Kinda pretty lady." I said, "Yes. Do you know her? Who is she?" She asked, "Did you see her face? Did you see her leave?" I responded, "No, I didn't see her coming or going, or what her face even looked like." I was surprised when the 2 girls responded, "Neither have we, but we see her periodically at different desks around here. We never see her face. We never see her come or go either." I was nervous and said, "Okay, we can't talk about this anymore. It's only my first night doing graveyard." I thought they were just messing around, but these girls had serious looks on their faces and described this lady to a T. Grim Reaper in the Nursing Home by DarriuxDarkk. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. I can't really recall the exact time, but it has been a very long time already. I was working in this nursing home back when I still lived in Baltimore. I was a new nurse back then, and I was stationed at this skilled unit that they call the vent unit. Now the patients or residents that stay here look like they are in critical conditions, with their ventilators attached to their trachea and peg tubes attached to their feeding pumps, but they are actually in stable condition, enough so for them to be placed on our unit. Our unit is like a crossroads. I don't know how to describe it well, but I'll try. The nurse's station is in the middle and shaped circular, where you can see the north, south, east and west hallways leading to other units. The north hallway has a dead end that leads to a wall at the far end and nowhere else. That side of the hallway always creeps me out, especially during the night shift when I work. One night it was past midnight already, and the lights were dimmed, but the north hallway was particularly darker than the rest, probably because it's a dead end. I was doing my chart checks, when in the corner of my eye, I saw a very tall shadow that just glided towards a resident's room. I was facing the east wing that time, because I didn't want to be facing the dark hallway head on, and still that didn't spare me from witnessing something unusual. I shrugged it off as my imagination, but I can really feel something different that time. Anyway, since it is my duty to do rounds to make sure my patients are okay, I went to the north hallway and checked on my patients, and nope, I didn't see anything unusual or any tall shadows, and so I went on to do what my duties needed me to do that night. Fast forward to the next day. As I come in for my shift that night, and I was getting the reports, I was surprised that the endorsing nurse told me that the patient in room such and so passed away that morning. I immediately recalled the tall shadowy figure that I saw out the corner of my eye that went through that side of the hallway rooms at the far end. I wasn't particularly sure which room, but I knew it was near where the resident that passed away was. Again, I passed it off as coincidence. A few months after, something happened that scared the crap out of me while working there. As I was passing meds out past midnight for some scheduled meds on my patients, I was again in the north hallway, and it was pretty dim, and everything was quiet, except for some occasional dings and alarms from some of the vents, but nothing unusual. As I entered this particular room, it was pretty dark, since the lights were off, but there were dim curtains on the hallway behind me. Now, the rooms have these wide open windows, and usually they are covered at night by curtains or blinds, but in this particular room they were wide open. I can't see what's outside since it's pitch black, but the window served as a mirror, so I could see my reflection, and the reflection of the hallway behind me when I enter the room. This gives me the creeps even today. I remember when I entered the room, I felt like there was something behind me. You know that feeling like when you're being watched, and you feel your hairs behind your neck standing up with that prickly sensation all over your body as your heart starts to race and pound faster? That's what I felt, and what made it worse was when I was trying to search for the room's light switch. I roamed my eyes all over the room while feeling with my hand on the wall for the switch. When my eyes landed on the reflection of the window, I saw a tall, shadowy figure standing just behind me. My heart literally skipped a beat, and as soon as I felt the switch, I turned it on, and the figure was gone from the reflection in the window. I was so freaked out that I never said a word that shift, and just did my work to occupy my mind. Even my co-worker asked if I was okay, but I just told them I was alright, even if I wasn't inside my head. The next day as I came back for work, I heard the terrible news that the patient in that room where I saw the shadow figure had died that morning. Hi guys, thank you so much for listening to today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Are any of you night shift workers, and have you had any weird experiences? If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hitting that notification bell so you know when the next video comes out. So, until next time, sleep tight.